Alright everybody, so the year was 1993. Filming was going on for a very dark and highly anticipated movie that was set to be released in May of '94. The cast was led by the rising star Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee was the son of none other than the great martial artist Bruce Lee. Now, tragedy would fall on set before the movie could wrap. Now before I tell you what happened, I'm going to take you back a little bit. We're going to go back to 1965. So Brandon Lee was born on February 1st, 1965. He was born to martial artist and actor Bruce Lee and American school teacher Linda Lee Cadwell. Bruce would be teaching his son from a very young age all about martial arts. That's what got Bruce to where he was. It's what he knew. It's what he was good at. And now, the thing is, they were constantly on the move. They had a place in Hong Kong and they had a place in the United States. They were always back and forth between both. Reason being was Bruce's acting career. So very sadly, when Brandon was only 5 years old, his father, Bruce Lee, would pass away in 1973. Bruce Lee undoubtedly left a mark on this world. He was an icon in martial arts and cinema, but sadly, he was gone. Now this forced the family to move back to California on a more consistent basis, but when Brandon was 9 years old, he started training more in martial arts with a Dan Anasanto. This man was one of his father's students. So by the time 1983 rolled around, Brandon wasn't feeling high school. He'd end up dropping out, he'd get his GED, and he'd move out to New York City. He would pursue his acting career. He went to a Lee Strasberg Film Theater Institute. After that, he would move on to an Emerson College out in Boston, Massachusetts. When he did, he majored in theater. He ended up being in several stage productions. 1985, Brandon Lee returned home to Los Angeles. He went back home to be a scriptwriter. But it was at this time he ended up getting the attention of casting director Lynn Stallmaster. He would end up successfully auditioning for his first ever credited acting role in a movie called Kung Fu the Movie. Now, this movie was based on a 1970s television show by the same name, Kung Fu. The lead in that TV show was David Carradine, and David Carradine would return as the lead in the movie with Brandon. So when 1986 rolled around, Brandon would end up getting his first leading role in Ronnie Yu's Hong Kong action crime thriller, Legacy of Rage. This would be the one and only movie that Brandon would do in Hong Kong. When 1991 rolled around, he was on a very short list of actors to play his father in the movie Dragon, a Bruce Lee story. Brandon refused the role. 2 reasons. One, he said it would just be very strange to play his father. And the second reason, he said it'd be kind of awkward to try to portray his parents' love life. So in August of 1991, he would get another role. He would get a role in the cop buddy comedy directed by Mark L. Lester. This movie saw him playing opposite of Dolph Lundgren. Now I'll tell you right now, this movie didn't get great reviews, but if you ask me, it was a pretty damn good movie. So it was in 1992 that 20th Century Fox would release a movie called Rapid Fire. This was directed by a guy named Dwight Little. This saw Brandon Lee play a character named Jake Lowe. Basically what happened is he witnessed a murder, he gets put in witness protection, and that's what the movie's about. The reason it came about though, it was producer Robert Lawrence. He saw the work that Brandon Lee did in Legacy of Rage, and he said this guy can be a leading man in Hollywood. And not only that, people just loved him. They thought he was good at what he did. You know, what he did with Dolph Lundgren in Showdown in Little Tokyo, again, it didn't get good reviews. Same thing with Rapid Fire. Did not get good reviews. But the critics could not deny the charisma that Brandon Lee had. So it was while Brandon Lee was out doing all the publicity for Rapid Fire that he would end up landing the leading role in Alex Prohas' movie, The Crow. So what The Crow was an adaptation of a comic book that went by the same name. It revolved around a man named Eric Draven. Eric Draven was a musician. He gets brought back to life by a supernatural crow. And the reason he's brought back to life is to avenge his own death, as well as the rape and murder of his fiancée by a dangerous gang in his own city. Look, Brandon took this role very, very serious. He knew he could get rid of that stigma, that stereotype that he was just a martial arts action star. That's what made his father a global icon. That was his father's thing. For Brandon Lee, this was his thing. He knew that if he took this role seriously, he did it right, that would help him set out his own path. He respected what his father did, but he knew he had a different journey, and The Crow was going to help him start his. So for the role, Brandon Lee would go on a special diet. He was trying to lose all the bulky muscle he had. He would end up weighing out each portion of food that he would consume before starting production. He was really focused on cardio. All of his weightlifting was of very light weights, and he was doing a lot of aerobics to help lose body fat. There was a man named Jeff Amata. He was a stunt coordinator. It was Brandon Lee's choice for the movie. That's who he wanted to hire, so they hired him. Now, they had a very good idea. With the help of him and his insight, for the character of Eric Draven, they had a great idea for the first night of shooting. The first night of shooting was going to be the scene where Draven was resurrected. So on that first night of shooting, to get ready for the resurrection scene, Brandon Lee would have members of the crew go buy him a bunch of bags of ice. He took those bags of ice and he put them inside a tub. He submerged himself inside. Now, to Lee, the resurrection scene and a freezing cold body went hand in hand. Another thing, that during the time of filming, it was wintertime. And in the movie The Crow, there was a lot of rain. And they said that Brandon, before all these scenes, he would soak himself prior to filming. That way he could act better without his shirt in the cold weather. With everything that Brandon was doing to get into the character Eric Draven, to get in that mindset that was him when the cameras were rolling, it was obvious. The film crew said they were so impressed with Brandon's performance and his obvious dedication to the character. So it was on the night, March 31st, 1993. They were filming a scene. In this scene, Brandon Lee's character, Eric Draven, he would enter an apartment. This apartment was one that he shared with his fiancée. As he walks in, he sees her being raped. He runs in to help her. It was at that time that the character, Fun Boy, who was being played by Michael Massey, would point a gun at him. This was intended to be a prop gun with blanks. So when Michael Massey fired that gun in Brandon Lee's direction, it apparently had a lead tip from a bullet lodged in the barrel. When this came out and it hit Brandon Lee, it struck him. It ruptured a main blood vessel. And it wasn't long after that Brandon Lee was dead. So not long after Brandon Lee's death, it was considered that the movie was dead too. But a few days after that, it was Brandon Lee's fiancée at the time, Eliza Hutton, and his mother. They gave director Proas their blessing and support to continue and finish the film. So it ended up taking 2 stunt doubles and special effects to give them a Lee-like face to finish the film. When it was done, on May 13th, 1994, The Crow would hit theaters. This movie ended up more than doubling what its budget was. And there was critics out there that said this was Brandon Lee's absolute best performance. There was even some out there that said his performance was better than anything his father ever did. So these days, The Crow is considered a cult classic. It's a great movie. Great, hell of a performance by a great actor gone way too soon. Now, some would say it's not that great. Well, those people are crazy, I'm going to tell you right now. Just the way that the plot was laid out, these actors that were in that movie not only took that plot to another level, they made it great just as well as Brandon did. And it's not because of what happened to Brandon that I say this is a great movie. It is a great movie. The style in which it was filmed, everything about this movie is great. And there is no doubt that Brandon Lee's performance will go down in history as one of the greatest ever. Period. There it is. Story of Brandon Lee. I want to thank everybody for listening to me today. And if you like what I had to say, please hit the like button. It'll help me and this channel grow. And if you want to hear more stories from me in the future, subscribe to the channel so you can get those notifications when they come out. Like I said, The Crow is a great story. Brandon Lee was a great actor. You could see that he was well on his way to doing something great. He got himself out of the shadow of his father. The Crow was the movie that set him apart. And who knows what he could have did after that. There's so many great roles that have come up after Brandon Lee's death that they said, man, he would have been perfect for that role. And I agree with it. But anyway, if there's anything that you think reigns true in your mind, or any fond stories that you have of Brandon Lee and The Crow, or anything you have to say about it, please leave comments in the comment section. I'll respond to all of them. And I just want to thank everybody for coming along. Remember, like I always say on this channel, if there's stuff you want to do, go for it. Follow your dreams. Make your dreams come true. And dream big. Thank you, everybody. Until next time, take care of yourself.